Let's get more on budgets and deficits. Joining us for the next hour is Congressman Scott Garrett, Republican from New Jersey. Scott, nice to see you. Here in the UK, the new coalition government has decided we've got to get to grips with our borrowing, and they've set up this new Office of Budget Responsibility. I'm kind of interested, when are we going to see sort of the same determination from the US government and politicians? I mean, is it harder for you guys because you've got elections every 2 years?
Yeah, but wait a minute. Didn't you hear President Obama said over a year ago that he had the whole idea that he's going to start right at the White House? I think he saved $100 million from his own administration. He started that at the very beginning. Of course, I'm being flippant because, no, we haven't seen any real desire from this administration to try to put the fiscal house in order here. And yeah, you're probably right that part of our problem is that we have elections every, not problem, but the economic dilemma here is that we have elections every 2 years. But it might be a good thing this year because I think the American public is pushing back, and I think they want us to do the right thing for a change and get the economic house straightened out.
Yeah, I'm sort of interested because, you know, we talk a lot about Europe here and Germany, you know, the German populace is sort of concerned that they're having to bail out potentially Greece and the other states. But how's it working right now for the rest of us around the world when you've got California's got financial problems, Illinois, New York, and you know, and you've got to work out those state finance problems?
Yeah. Well, you know, you say they're worried about they're having to bail out the rest of Europe. There is some sentiment here in the United States that the United States may have to pick up some of the tab for bailing out part of Europe as well, vis-a-vis the IMF. So there's that pushback already. And the reason for that is, just as you say, because we have our own problems right here in the United States. I'm from the great state of New Jersey, and it doesn't get as much international news maybe as California does, because California's economy is just so large. But, you know, New Jersey's debt situation and economic situation is, on a per capita basis, actually just as bad, in some areas actually worse than California is. It's just that we're a much smaller state. So we have our own crisis here and problems and dilemmas in our own state as well.
Is that the next crisis to fall? Stateside?
Stateside,
the state of the state,
the state of the state. And one of the areas there is in the area of pensions. We have public sector pensions that have to be dealt with. And where was it? It was a report, a few months ago out of a university out in the Midwest. I can't cite it right now, but it was looking at the teachers' pension funds and saying that if they don't do something immediately within I think about a 15 or 18-year period, that you will just not be able to make the pension payments for the current retirees because of the crisis. I think it was between $1 and $3 trillion that they were looking at as far as shortfalls going over in just about a 2-decade period. A phenomenal number that we have to come into grips with, and I don't think the taxpayers are quite ready to deal with that.
Just add it to the tab, right?
Yeah, very
Congressman Scott Garrett stays with us, of course, Republican from New Jersey, for the entire hour. Really lucky to have you with us. We appreciate it. Let's just get a quick update on the BP oil spill. President Obama is expected to press BP executives this week to set up an escrow amount, as Ross was mentioning, to pay the damage claims from the Gulf Coast oil spill. This, of course, is a move as President Obama travels to Mississippi, to Alabama, Florida today and tomorrow. He's also addressing the nation on Tuesday night from the Oval Office. President Obama meets with the BP chairman on Wednesday, and reports say he'll call for an independent panel to oversee the claims process. Several U.S. senators want BP to put an initial $20 billion into an escrow account. We've been following this, of course, every single day at this point. It is a disaster at this point. It is a huge crisis. Do you think President Obama is spending too much time, though, on it? He's been criticized for doing that and diverting attention from other places.
Oh, my goodness, no. Quite the opposite is that the administration has not been spending the time that they need to on this. We're dealing with public area here in the waters. It's private in the sense that BP was responsible for it, but we're looking at the public aspect as well. So the administration has responsibility, but you know, from day one, they have been very slow to respond, and there's been all sorts of reports out there, both we see in Washington and in the news media as well, as far as alternative approaches to try to deal with the fallout of this, that the administration has been silent on, going slow on, that we would like them just to pick up the pace, and they're not.
So what do you do? I mean, what's the answer? Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball here.
Well, it goes to the last little comment with regard to the economic situation, the public outcry on this. I could tell from day one that it was going to be slow because you really couldn't see it. You just saw you saw the news reports here that it happened, but you didn't see the impact on it. Now the impact is coming in stronger, as you report here, on a daily basis. And the economic impact is growing, and so there's going to be a groundswell of public pressure on the administration to basically get out of the White House, get off of the golf course, get out of the fundraisers, and actually put some pressure on it. And that'll probably result in some of the activity reporting right now as far as pressure on funds and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but there is a rift, I suppose, in sentiment, and I'm trying to choose my words very closely because, you know, Ross and I will go back and forth on this. It's perceived differently in the United States as it is in Europe right now. Is this a U.S. v. UK situation, a la the football game, soccer game, if you will? Is there any analogy there?
Yeah, I'm really curious. I mean, curious about that rift that's going on between here and the UK, as far as that the administration is being too tough on BP and what have you.
Do you think they are?
No, not at all. I mean, the BP, and they admit to their responsibility and they admit to the obligations that they have. So no, I don't think this administration is being too tough on them. They have to hold their feet to the fire. They have to hold them responsible. They have to make sure that that BP is doing everything humanly possible on the one hand. But as I was alluding to before, the administration also has to do everything with its power here in the United States to bring all of our forces to bear, both the official ones with the Army Corps and the Coast Guard and the rest, but also the ingenuity of the American public and of the other institutions of this country to try to get some relief to the waterfront at the same time. It's in those public arena areas that I think this administration has been a little bit lacking.
Okay, I should just pick up one thing on that, Congressman. We saw that with Katrina. There's a perception here that if you've got a problem in one state, it seems to be hard for a government to mobilize, a federal government to mobilize local relief. For what I mean, it happened with Katrina, you know, and President Bush. Why is that? If that's what the perception is.
Yeah, maybe that's a perception, but that shouldn't be the case. Now, you know, in Katrina, it was slightly different, right? In Katrina, you had those several states where it was impacted. It was on land, and the states responded pretty well in certain areas. Mississippi, as you recall, their state engaged and got to the issues and addressed it fairly well. And other states, well, Louisiana, we saw all the infamous reports coming out of that state during that situation, the tragic situation when the governor and the mayors failed to act in a timely manner, failed to get the people out of there, failed to get the school buses and that sort of thing out of there. So those states responded in a poor manner. The federal government got in, perhaps slow at the beginning, but then engaged very well soon after that. So that's how Katrina came down. Here in this situation, you really be looking at a different sort of situation. The states can't really respond in the same manner because it's all offshore. I mean, the state of Louisiana doesn't have its own Coast Guard, if you will, to be able to go out there and do all the things that they need to do. And that's why you need, in this situation, probably a lot more than the Katrina situation, for private sector and the federal government to step up to the plate. Why? Because it's all out there in the public domain. It's all out there in the public waters. It's out there where they have to, well, what's one of the solutions? Build the barrier reefs. Now, there was if I may, there is one case where the states did step up first and said, this is an idea that we think we should be done. Who would that be responsible for? That would be the federal government. They were slow in A, giving the permission to do so. They have to get the permits and what have you, and B, actually implementing it afterwards.
Okay, Congressman, you're sticking around. Good to have you on the program today.
Sure.